Midway through Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis paused. The band hung on a chord. In the second row, a young woman clutched a cardboard sign. "My mom's last wish to hear you sing." The spotlight caught her tears. The arena went silent. Before we share what happened next, make sure you're here for more real stories of kindness from music legends. These are the moments that prove a song can change more than a night. It can change a life. The Hilton showroom was already alive before he even appeared. Late summer, Las Vegas heat pressed against the glass doors outside, but inside, the air was cool, humming with the low clink of cocktail glasses and the muffled shuffle of programs. At exactly 10:15 p.m., the house lights dimmed. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Sequins caught the glow of spotlights. Somewhere near the back, an amp gave a soft hiss. And then the roar. Elvis strode onto the stage, white jumpsuit trimmed in gold, catching every flash of light. The first chords hit. He grinned, tossing a quick wink toward the front row. The showman in his element. Tonight his voice was strong, smooth, confident. He moved easily between verses, tossing scarves into eager hands, every gesture met with cheers. But halfway through the second song, something changed. Mid-line, his eyes snagged on a single point in the crowd. Front row, just right of center, a woman in her 30s, hair pulled back, not waving, not screaming, just holding a piece of cardboard over her head. He kept singing, but slower now, almost distracted. The spotlight shifted, brushing across the sign just enough to make out black block letters. Not the whole thing, just enough to see a few words. His head tilted slightly. The band followed his tempo, uncertain. He took a step closer to the edge of the stage, squinting against the glare. The letters came into focus. The grin faded. The crowd felt it instantly. Conversations cut off, glasses hit tabletops. Even the band seemed to hang on the chord a beat too long. Elvis raised his right hand, palm open. A signal every musician behind him knew well. The music stopped. The silence was thick enough to hear the faint rattle of ice in a drink, 2 tables back. In the second row, the woman kept the sign lifted. She didn't flinch, her eyes were locked on him. Elvis took 2 steps forward, then another, until the toe of his white boot hovered over the edge of the stage. He leaned forward slightly, still staring at her, as if the rest of the room no longer existed. From the balcony, a fan would later say you could see the moment he made a decision, a small, almost imperceptible nod. Without a word, he started to crouch, lowering himself toward her. The crowd leaned in, even the security guard by the steps froze. And then, Elvis planted one boot on the lower step, closing the gap between them, eyes never leaving hers. He stopped just short of the front row, the gold trim of his jumpsuit catching the spotlight. The woman lowered the cardboard sign just enough for him to read it in full. "My mom is dying. Her last wish to hear you sing." Witnesses recalled the shift in his face. The smile was gone, his jaw tightened, eyes softening. The easy performer's stance gave way to something quieter, more present. He crouched lower, resting one hand on the stage edge for balance. "What's your name?" his voice carried, low but clear. "Linda," she answered. The crowd stayed silent. Linda leaned forward, speaking quickly before courage could fade. Her mother, Mary, had been a fan since the 1950s. She'd played Elvis records every Sunday morning. Now she was in Sunrise Hospital, 2 blocks from the Hilton, too weak to attend. Linda had bought this ticket to film one song for her. A ripple went through the front tables. Some pressed hands to their mouths. Others shifted uncomfortably, unsure what would happen next. Elvis glanced back at the band, then down at Linda again. "She's close by," Linda nodded. He reached for the mic stand, fingers brushing the cool metal, then stopped. He let go, straightening slowly. From the balcony, a fan later said, you could see his shoulders lift with a deep inhale, the kind you take when you're about to do something you didn't plan for. He turned back toward the band, voice steady. "Follow." The horn player's eyebrows shot up. Ronnie Tutt on drums tightened his grip on the sticks. Without another word to the audience, Elvis stepped to center stage. He adjusted the mic, cleared his throat, and instead of announcing the next number, began walking toward the Linda stood frozen, eyes wide as he moved past her row. He didn't touch her shoulder, didn't speak. Just gave a small nod toward the side of the stage, a silent invitation to follow. A low murmur began in the back of the room. The maitre d' glanced toward security, Linda's chair scraped softly against the carpet as she stood. She followed him toward the wings, passing waiters holding trays mid-air. The band stayed ready, instruments in hand, but no music came. The audience, still seated, watched the two figures disappear behind the curtain. In the hallway beyond, Elvis slowed just enough for her to catch up. His voice dropped so only she could hear. "Let's go see her." He turned down the service corridor, without looking back. The narrow backstage hall smelled faintly of hairspray and electrical dust. A single red bulb glowed above the stage door as Elvis pushed it open and stepped back into view. The crowd gasped. He wasn't in position. No band cue, no announcement. Instead of resuming the set list, he walked straight to the center of the stage, mic in hand. He glanced toward the band, raised his free hand, and without warning, began to sing "Love Me Tender" a cappella. No drums, no bass. Just his voice, low and steady, curling through the quiet room. The first line drifted across the tables like a private whisper. By the second, the audience leaned forward, elbows on tablecloths. Glasses sat untouched. You could hear the faint hum of the stage monitors. Linda stood just off stage, one hand over her mouth, the other gripping her purse. She wasn't filming now. She was watching something she couldn't have scripted. Halfway through, Elvis turned slightly, giving a subtle nod. The band joined in softly, guitar barely above a murmur, brushes on the snare like rain against a window. He kept his eyes fixed on Linda. Each word seemed aimed straight at her, but the room felt it too. Mid-song he stepped toward the edge of the stage. His hand went to the scarf around his neck. The signature move. Normally he'd loop it over a fan's shoulders, a playful moment before tossing another into the crowd. But this time was different. He bent down and wrapped the scarf around Linda's hands, folding it into her palms. She clutched it as if it might vanish. From somewhere near the back, a single sniffle carried in the silence between verses. The heat from the stage lights pooled at his back. The scent of his cologne faint in the air. As the final line faded, he didn't bow, didn't toss another scarf. He looked at her and said into the mic, "Let's make sure she hears this tonight." The audience exhaled as one. Some clapped, others just stared, unsure if the show was over, or if they were part of something private. Then Elvis did something no one expected. He stepped off the stage entirely. Security scrambled from both wings, unsure whether to clear a path or stop. The maitre d' waved frantically at the band, but they stayed silent. Linda followed, scarf still clutched in both hands. The two of them disappeared into the shadowed aisle, leaving the audience in stunned quiet. Elvis turned toward the exit, moving fast enough that Linda had to jog to keep up. The service corridor was narrow, lined with stacked speaker cases and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Elvis moved quickly, his white boots striking the linoleum with a steady thump. Linda kept pace, still gripping the scarf. Behind them, two security men trailed, glancing at each other as if unsure what this was turning into. They passed a door propped open, revealing the quiet din of the kitchen. The hiss of steam, the clang of metal trays. A line cook froze, spatula in hand, eyes going wide as he realized who was walking past. Through a side exit, the hot Vegas night hit instantly. The air smelled faintly of asphalt and cigarette smoke. Neon spilled across the sidewalk in fractured reds and blues. Elvis didn't slow. He crossed the street without waiting for the light, Linda right behind him. A cab slowed in the next lane, the driver hanging his head out the window in disbelief. Sunrise Hospital rose ahead, its pale concrete glowing under the parking lot lamps. The automatic doors hissed open. Inside, the smell shifted, antiseptic, faintly metallic. The buzz of distant monitors replaced the muffled casino music. A nurse at the front desk froze mid-sentence, her eyes darting from Elvis to Linda. Room 214, Linda asked, breathless. The nurse pointed down the hall without a word. They walked past open doorways, patients half asleep. The sound of late-night television drifting into the corridor. A custodian stepped aside, pressing his back to the wall, mop in hand. Someone muttered softly, "That can't be him." Halfway down the hall, Elvis slowed. Linda stepped ahead, stopping outside a door with a small plastic plaque. Tuandu War. Through the partially open door, a frail woman lay propped on pillows, an oxygen tube tracing along her cheek. Her hair was thin, her skin pale, but her eyes, when they caught sight of him, widened with something between disbelief and joy. Linda's voice cracked. "Mama, look who's here." Elvis stepped inside without hesitation, pulling a chair to her bedside. His presence filled the small room. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I believe you asked for a song." The woman tried to speak, but only a whisper came. Her gaze never left his face. Elvis reached for the nearby nightstand, resting one hand on it, as if grounding himself. Then, without looking at Linda or the others gathered in the doorway, he leaned slightly forward. His right hand moved as if to strum a chord, but there was no guitar anywhere in the room. His fingers hovered in the air, then curled slightly, as if holding an invisible neck of a guitar. A low hum slipped from his throat, the opening notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love." The sound was soft, unhurried, each phrase wrapped in warmth. No microphone, no echo, just his voice filling the small hospital room, carrying over the steady hiss of the oxygen line. Mary's hand trembled on the blanket. Linda reached for it, their fingers interlocking. Elvis didn't take his eyes off her mother. Each line was deliberate, like he was laying down something fragile that couldn't be replaced. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly. Outside in the hall, a nurse paused, then quietly pulled the door closed, shutting out the world. Mary's lips moved along with the chorus, barely audible. A smile formed, small but unmistakable. By the bridge, Elvis leaned forward slightly, lowering his tone to something almost like a whisper. It felt less like a performance, and more like a conversation set to melody. Linda swallowed hard, fighting the sting in her eyes. The final line came and went. Silence followed, not the awkward kind, but the heavy golden kind that holds a moment in place. Mary was the first to speak. Her voice was barely there. "Thank you, Elvis." He smiled gently. "No, ma'am," he said, lowering his forehead almost to hers. "Thank you." It wasn't the grin from the showroom. It was something quieter, more human. He reached up, unlooped the scarf from around his neck, and laid it across her blanket. His hand pressed it gently into her palm, as though tucking in a secret. She closed her fingers over it, eyes closing for a beat, as if she needed to feel the fabric to believe it was real. No one in the room moved. The moment stretched, unbroken. Then Elvis stood, gave a small nod to Linda, and turned toward the door. Mary watched him go until the frame of the doorway hid him from sight. According to the family, she spoke of that night every single day, until she passed away, just 5 days later. The scarf stayed by her bed until the end. Linda kept it. 1 week after the funeral, the doorbell rang. A package sat on the step, with no return address. Linda hesitated before picking up the package. It was medium-sized, wrapped in plain brown paper, edges neatly taped. There was no sender listed, just her name, written in black marker. She carried it inside, setting it gently on the kitchen table. The weight was uneven, something shifting inside when she moved it. Her hands shook as she peeled the paper back. Beneath it was a white cardboard box. Inside, the first thing she saw was a photograph. Glossy, 8 by 10. Framed in simple wood. It was Elvis on stage at the Hilton. The photo had caught him mid-verse, leaning forward, eyes locked toward the front row. The background was a blur of light and shadow. Across the bottom, in blue ink, was a handwritten message. "For Mary, you had the best seat in the house. Elvis." Linda pressed her hand to her mouth. The handwriting was unmistakable, bold and fluid. Beneath the frame lay a small cassette tape. The hotel's logo stamped on the case. Inside was the live soundboard recording from that night, the entire show, from the opening number to the moment Elvis stepped off the stage. And in the middle, crystal clear, was the serenade. Linda slid the tape into the old player on the counter. The click of the play button was followed by the familiar applause, the opening songs, then his voice. The audio captured it all, the hush in the room, the faint shuffle of footsteps, the warmth in his tone as he sang directly for her mother. Between the lines, Mary's soft laugh was there, faint, but audible, as if she were still in the room. Linda closed her eyes and listened all the way to the end. When the final note faded, she sat in silence, tears streaking her face. For her it wasn't just a recording, it was proof. Proof that kindness could step off a stage, cross a street, and sit beside a hospital bed. Proof that for a few minutes, the king of rock and roll didn't see the crowd, he saw her mother. She kept the tape, played it on birthdays, on quiet nights when the loss felt heavy, and every time the scarf lay across her lap, just as it had across her mother's blanket. Sometimes the greatest performances aren't for the crowd at all, they're for the one person who can't be there. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes music can heal more than the heart. And tell us in the comments, have you ever seen an artist stop everything for one fan?